Marvel's Endgame is meant to be a triumphant, albeit bittersweet, capstone on over a decade of incredible interweaving films. The movie follows the events of Infinity War, in which the best efforts of a universe's worth of heroes was not enough to overcome the mad titan Thanos. Ostensibly concerned with the suffering caused by overpopulation, but actually really just a goddamn genocidal maniac, Thanos gathers 6 Infinity Stones with the aims of erasing half of all life in the universe. He succeeds, and as promised, half of the universe's organic life is transformed into dust. In Endgame, the heroes that remain come up with a plan to undo the snap and bring everyone back, and despite stumbles and sacrifice, they do it. By the end of the movie, Thanos has been dusted and everyone who previously got snapped is now back. Cue the confetti and streamers, this is very clearly meant to be a happy ending. Except it's not a happy ending. Far from it. And no, I'm not just talking about the fact that, Tony died in a last-ditch effort to save the planet.
Are you crying? Am I crying? No, I'm not crying. You're crying.
The misery train has got plenty more stops after that station. There's a pretty solid chance that the Avengers and Co.'s heroism is going to have some nasty repercussions. The effects of the second snap, the one that brings everybody back, is bound to lead to economic and political disaster. They haven't saved the day. They took an already bad situation and have managed to make it worse. So I'm not the first person to argue that there are going to be some negative externalities with the Avengers' decision. As Dr. Craig Powlison on the channel MarketPower argues, there's a pretty decent chance that when Tony Stark snaps his fingers, he accidentally sets in motion a global famine. I'm not going to go into the entire argument because he does a fantastic job at presenting it, so just go check that out, and his channel just in general. They're going to be links for both of those down in the doobie-doo. But to give a quick synopsis, when Tony snaps his fingers, he is going to basically induce a massive amount of food scarcity. Not by reducing the amount of food that's available, but by literally doubling the number of mouths that need to be fed without increasing the amount of food readily available. To look at what else has been made scarce, let's consider Spider-Man, specifically that scene at the end where Peter Parker returns to school and is reunited with his best friend. Man, it's a really good thing that apparently all of Peter Parker's school got snapped, or else we presumably have to deal with something like this. Excuse me, who are you? Me? I'm Peter Parker. Yeah, you're not in the class roles, so you're going to have to leave. Oh, I mean, I can understand that. I was one of the people who were snapped, and well, you're just gonna have to take that up with the administration. In the meantime, you're gonna have to leave. Look, I get there might be some paperwork headaches, but look, I just want to learn Greek, and this is a Greek class, so could we just deal with that official stuff later? Okay, first off, this class isn't Greek. It's econometrics. Understandable mistake. Second, we have no idea who you are, if you're telling the truth or not. I mean, you could just be some stranger who wandered in off the street, and in today's day and age where we have to worry about literally everything from magical doppelgangers to aliens, you just can't be too safe. So... Okay, so that may seem like a particularly inventive and contrived example, and maybe it was mostly formulated for me to call out the less credulous parts of Marvel's canon, but it actually represents a broader kind of scarcity. Government services. In the beginning of the movie, we were told that post-snap the world had plunged into anarchy as governments scrambled to respond to Thanos' assault. But by 5 years after that, it's clear that stability had largely returned. I mean, the streets weren't littered with trash, new monuments had been erected, and people weren't being harassed by roving bands of bandits. The staples of modernity. In short, it seemed like there was in fact a government, and that said government was providing services to its people. But then there comes the second snap, and suddenly there are twice as many people, but the government's capacity certainly hasn't doubled. The amount of stuff at its disposal and its efficiency with which it can deliver that stuff hasn't changed. And in the Game of Thrones video, we've already talked about how weak government capacity doesn't exactly bode well for stability. And it's not just government capacity that will fail to keep up, it's economic capacity too. Because there are still restaurants for people to go out and have dates, there's presumably still money. And if there's presumably money, there's presumably ways for people to earn it. Jobs. The thing that I will certainly not have when I graduate with my PhD. After the massive exogenous shock that was the Infinity Stones, the economy most likely evolved to deal with the number of people that were left and the skills that they had. But now people are instantaneously back. Unemployment is probably going to shoot up to just about 50%, but there aren't going to be anywhere near enough jobs to be able to accommodate that. And it's not like people could just waltz into their old place of work and just pick up where they left off. They were probably replaced. And that's assuming that the business even still exists, which it very well may not. It could have collapsed post-snap, the owner could have been dusted, and it's not like that if this owner had just reappeared, they're just going to have the capital to immediately start back up again. And frankly, considering the economy's evolution, there's a pretty decent chance that the businesses that survived prior to Thanos wouldn't be able to survive anymore. It's not even so much that people can't return to their old jobs, those kinds of jobs may not even exist anymore. People would start to demand that the government take action. But again, because of the lack of new efficiency, it's not like the government is capable of taking much, at least not immediately. But the massive amounts of people demanding services and simple economic opportunities would mean that there's a strong populist push for government delivering those things, as well as, basic necessities, because again, there's probably a famine going on at the same time too. Within a few electoral cycles, many of the world's democracies backslide into authoritarianism, totalitarianism, or both. And while that's bad, that's honestly still pretty optimistic, because at least at that point there's still a government left standing. But there's a better chance that that won't be the case at all. To understand why, let's contemplate something that wasn't brought up at the end of Endgame, surprisingly. What's going on with Wakanda? As you guys may or may not remember, T'Challa, the Black Panther and King of Wakanda, was one of the people who got the unlucky side of Thanos' cosmic coin flip. For years, it was assumed that there was nothing anyone could do about those who were lost. T'Challa was good and dead. There needed to be a new Black Panther and a new King of Wakanda. Someone presumably got the crown. We're not sure who, though, we weren't told. It could have been Shuri, it could have been a Wakandan warlord, we don't know. But someone else is now the ruler. But in Endgame, T'Challa returns. So, who's the king? Shuri was the one who got the throne. It's conceivable that she abdicates it and lets T'Challa have it back. If it was someone else, though, then that becomes nowhere near as likely, not only just because of personal ambition, but because the elites that have sprung up to support this new reign presumably like how things are being run. And for them to acquiesce to someone who's going to run things differently, that's probably not gonna fly. A likely outcome is civil war. Two people having competing and legitimate claims to political power means that there's very little chance that this is going to be resolved without concomitantly serious contestation. And while these results are perhaps most obvious in authoritarian cases, they still translate to democracies pretty well. Like, if you think that a bunch of resurrected congressmen and senators are just going to quiescently accept that they don't have any power anymore, you have perhaps a far too charitable view of human nature. No. Best case, they try to deal with these matters electorally through the creation of new political parties, similar to how the communist parties did after the fall of the Soviet Union. Other likelihood, though, is not as great. The, in my opinion, more likely case is that they call into question the whole legitimacy of the government. And since half the population is without gainful employment and all of the population is probably starving without adequate government services, theirs would be a particularly tempting clarion call. So, yeah, while suddenly bringing everyone back is supposed to set the world back on course, best case scenario is actually global turmoil from political and economic systems being pushed beyond their breaking point. Worst case scenario is still global tumult, but with the bloody bonus of everybody starving to death. Curious to see what you guys think about the outcomes of the second snap. Am I being too pessimistic? Would the world end up being okay? And no cheating by just going out like, well, everything seemed fine in Spider-Man Far From Home. Don't want none of that nonsense here. Looking forward to seeing your guys' comments on that, other thoughts that cropped up while watching this video, and suggestions for future topics. Always happy to see those down in the comment section below. Looking forward to reading all of them and answering a few in the next office hours. Special thanks to those supporting Professor Politics on Patreon. I'd like to give a special shout out to research assistants Sam, Dealey, and Joel. Patrons get exclusive content, early content, and shout outs. So if you'd like to be able to help, there's a link down in the doobly-doo as well as at the end card of the video. I really appreciate it. Last week we talked about why Supreme Court justices serve for life. So let's see what you guys had to say about that. JCE was here, asked if one way to ameliorate the current issues stemming from lifetime appointments would be to make the Supreme Court justices have bipartisan representation with a median independent option. And while that's an interesting option, I'm not sure that's the most effective thing. Although we really hear about divisive cases, the SCOTUS justices actually agree with each other more often than they split on what they assume to be their partisan lines. Plus, while party is a pretty good heuristic for now, things have not always been polarized based upon party. I personally think that we should be more focused on judicial ideology rather than partisanship or even political ideology. There is certainly overlap between these three, but in my opinion, that's the thing that we should really be trying to judge judges on. You know, I guess pun intended, whatever. Nova Infinity Void noticed that there also isn't a set constitutional limit for the number of justices, which is an astute and absolutely spot-on observation. I was debating whether or not I was going to bring that up in the video, but I think I'm going to reserve that for when court packing gets brought up, as it almost invariably does. It's like a cycle. It's someone's going to bring up how we need more justices on the Supreme Court, and in that next cycle, hopefully I'll be able to put that video out then. But excellent, yes, great observation. I honestly feel like I'd be doing a disservice to encapsulate Tim Northrup's comment in a couple of sentences, so I suggest you give it a quick read here in its entirety. I also feel pretty similar about Helios Infinitus' comment, so, you know, really good points in these two, and I suggest y'all give them a read. That'll do it for the video. Thank you guys so much for your comments. I truly appreciate all that you guys put into them. Sources for everything as always be down in the doobie-doo, as well as links Facebook, Twitter, and the blog. Look forward to seeing you guys out there as well. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by commenting down below, by sharing this video, and by subscribing to the channel, staying in the loop for more awesome social science content is uploaded. If you want to guarantee to be in the loop when I upload a new video, be sure to click the bell icon as well. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.